Hendon Hooker or Anthony Richardson? Who should the Saints draft? We are with Off the Bench Overtime, T-Bob and Jacob Hester. Now, I haven't watched the video, but in order to really figure this out, you have to throw in when they're going to be drafted. So I'm assuming, and you know what assuming does, but I'm assuming this means, should the Saints potentially trade up to get Anthony Richardson, or should they wait and use a later draft pick on someone like Hendon Hooker? Now, I have been vocal with the Hendon Hooker thing because he's 27 years old and he's off of a torn ACL. On the flip side, Richardson is absolutely a feast or famine kind of prospect. He is either going to be Cam Newton or he is going to be out of the league. Like he is one of those players that he's so physically gifted, but it's just there's no proven track record. It's like we know what he can do physically, and he's going to test really well at the combine. I can go ahead and tell you that. So a lot of teams are going to be interested, which means the Saints are not going to be able to get him at 29. I'll go ahead and tell you that. He's going to be taken closer to first overall than he's going to be taken 29th overall. So is the risk of how good he potentially could be, a la Cam Newton, is the potential of that worth draft capital, future picks, players, whatever it would take to move up? Or do we choose a safer kind of pick and see what we get with Hooker? If both reach their potential, I would go with Richardson. I think, if you told me he's Cam Newton, if you told me he's a Pro Bowl player, he's a MVP kind of player, he's that level, yeah, trade up, whatever you got to do, go get him. You're no longer in quarterback hell. You've got a franchise quarterback. If he gives you 6 to 8 years of that, like Cam did in Carolina, then let's roll. Let's do it. But the other side's not too bad either. If Hooker comes in, if you think he's good, I don't think physically he's where Richardson is, but if the Saints think that Hooker can do it, then 3 years or so of a able Hooker, which in New Orleans those aren't hard to find. But if he's able for a couple years there, he may not be a franchise quarterback because of his age, but he's a nice, stable, exciting player that we can build around for a couple of years there until the next era of Saints football.
Latest reports are that the New York Jets are going after Aaron Rodgers as plan A, Derek Carr on plan B, and it looks like Derek Carr is saying, okay, I'll wait on the Jets, and then if they don't want me, then I'll maybe go rejoin Dennis Allen.
I said this weeks ago. We said this weeks ago on the show with Carr and Rodgers that once Carr got released from the Raiders, then I told y'all, go ahead and forget about Derek Carr. I don't think we've made a video on Derek Carr since then, because he is waiting on Aaron Rodgers. He's waiting on Lamar Jackson. He's the 4th or 5th domino. Honestly, he's kind of waiting on Jimmy Garoppolo. He's waiting on a lot of other people to fall before he figures out anything. So, yeah, if Rodgers does not go to the Jets, then I think Carr will go to the Jets. So, as far as I'm concerned, Carr and the Saints are on standstill. We need to figure something out first, and that's where the draft comes in.
And get the band back together. Just so we can, win 3 or 4 games again.
The band that played at the bowling alley because they paid the bowling alley for the space, not because the bowling alley paid them to come play.
Yeah, but that's a young lead singer in Derek Carr, okay?
He's not. He's 31. Like, it's not a young lead singer. I don't want to make this Derek Carr video. I really don't. And I didn't know this where this was going to go. But I'm with Jacob here. It's like, get the band back together for what? 5 wins? 6 wins? He's not young. He's not exciting. He's 31. He's been in the league for 8 years. He's done nothing his entire career. This is not a young, exciting franchise quarterback. That's not who this guy is. That's not who he's ever been. If winning 7 games is exciting while paying somebody $40 million to go eat roast oysters at Drago's, if that's exciting, then yeah, Derek Carr is an exciting prospect.
Okay. It's like how the Beatles, right? What's the old?
Are you going to compare Derek Carr to the Beatles right now?
Yeah, absolutely. In Malcolm Gladwell's book about 10,000 hours, again, right? About 10,000 hours mastering something.
He's talking about Outliers. Outliers, the book about Malcolm Gladwell. Read the book, have it right here in my library. Great book. If you ever want to go check it out, I would highly recommend it. It shows you just how much luck is into success, how much luck and how many outside factors have to happen for people like Bill Gates to succeed, or the best hockey players in the world to succeed. Fascinating book.
The Beatles had some gig early on. I can't remember where it was, but it was like a low-level gig like that. But basically it meant that they had to play it was something like 8 hours a day or something, right? So, of course, they got really good because they just did it constantly. So, they may have been playing in the bowling alley, okay? But they've gotten better from that original year.
What has shown you that they've gotten better?
Well, Derek Carr ended up making the playoffs a couple times.
Oh, good for him.
He did not play in the first playoff game. He was injured, so he did not do that. And the other time was the infamous tie game where the Chargers, if the Chargers and the Raiders tied, then they both would have went to the playoffs, but instead in overtime, the Raiders just went ahead and won. That was with a interim coach who was no longer there, and they got smoked in the opening round of the playoffs.
He's been a multi-time Pro Bowler,
so much so that his team just released him.
Whatever, dude. The Raiders suck, okay? And Josh McDaniels sucks worst of all. But still, whatever. It's a sad state of affairs for the Saints when you are subservient to the Jets. And that...
if I knew this was going to be the first 2 minutes, I would have skipped it to get to the Richardson Hooker part. But I guess we're just going to go ahead and live through this Derek Carr stuff.
It's actually legitimate. Because as we said, the Jets have the number 2 defense in the NFL, offensive defense rookie of the year. In terms of offense, because the Saints had a top 10 defense. In terms of offense, the Jets were worse, but only slightly worse. About 1.5 points behind what the Saints were doing.
So just like you're talking yourself into Anthony Richardson being
the difference between the Jets and the Saints is that the Jets are way younger. Like as far as their exciting players, what they're looking to do, there's more trust in the coaching staff, things like that. That's why the Jets are seen as a better option than the Saints. The Saints, a lot of people see the Saints as kind of a decrepit organization. You know, potentially you have a head coach who's going to get fired. You have an offensive coordinator who's going to get fired, or really. I mean, his headset might not even be plugged in. You've got aging stars everywhere. You've got Chris Olave, and you got a running back who could be serving hard time. So you got Michael Thomas falling apart, probably going to get traded. So I mean, the Saints have a lot of variables, and none of them are good variables. Like really, if you're a free agent, especially like a quarterback, if you're a free agent, you're looking at the Saints. The only part of that you're excited about is Chris Olave, because a lot of people here are going to be like, oh, Rashid Shaheed and Jawan Johnson, and they don't Aaron Rodgers doesn't know who they are. Like you think Aaron Rodgers knows who Rashid Shaheed is? You think he knows about Jawan Johnson? Like you think Aaron Rodgers knows who Pete Werner is? No. We got to kind of be realistic about this kind of stuff, where right now the only big name player that we've got for a free agent quarterback is Chris Olave. And it used to be Alvin Kamara. Like Hendon Hooker talked about this week. He said that Alvin Kamara reached out. They both went to Tennessee. But Kamara was in a courtroom yesterday. Like that's a huge risky variable.
Being the number 1 overall pick, I am fully on board with the Saints finding a way to draft Hendon Hooker.
Okay,
the more tape that I watch, the more I walk away impressed with him. I think he can make all the throws. I think he continued to grow each and every year that he was a player. He played a lot of football.
Played at Virginia Tech, went to Tennessee. We've covered a little bit of that. I watched a lot of Hooker in college. I watched a lot of him at Tennessee. I have not seen anything since the injury. I haven't gone back and looked at tape broken down. Everything I saw was live. Everything I saw was in-game live. At Tennessee and a little bit at the end of Virginia Tech. So I haven't done as much work on Hooker as I have on Richardson, and we'll put a lot of videos on the channel breaking down breaking down them as a quarterback and all that stuff. So I look, from what I saw, Hendon Hooker, great deep ball, good passer, one of those guys who I think is poised, has played a lot of football, is comfortable in the pocket. He doesn't look like a rookie that you can tell with pocket presence and stuff like that, like how players climb in the pocket, how they move around in the pocket, if they get happy feet, things like that. He's not one of those kind of players. I don't hate the idea of sitting back and drafting Hendon Hooker. I think it's pretty much risk-free, honestly. I think it's like if we can, even if we take him in the second round, even if we reach on him there, it's like if that's a reach and we can kind of develop this guy, have him play halfway through next year or something like that, see if he can do something for 2 or 3 years, like I said, since he's older, on that rookie contract, it would cost us virtually nothing. If we want to get out of it afterwards, then there's no problem, no harm, no foul. I think if we're looking at the whole kit and caboodle, if we're looking at the whole thing with the risk and how much we would have to put forward to draft Anthony Richardson, I probably would lean with Hendon Hooker here. I mean, you do, I guess, the gambler's fallacy of like, well, what if you're missing out on a generational player? But if that happens, I guess. And the chances, I don't think we have. I think Richardson will go into the top 10. Do we have enough to move from 29 to, let's say, 9, 29 to 6? No, I don't think we do. That's an enormous jump. That would be a crazy move. So I'd be cooler with going backwards and trying to draft Hooker somewhere back there.
In different spots, Virginia Tech, and then he goes to Tennessee, and he gets an opportunity, and he never gets the job back. And I think the more and more that I sit there and watch, he was in command of that offense. And I just gave you the Anthony Richardson grades. The lowest grade that Hendon Hooker had last year was 62% against LSU.
Oh, yeah. Look, I love it.
And maybe the best throw that he had of the year.
Yeah, the deep ball
was against LSU down the sidelines on the left side in the south end zone.
Yep. I love it because he's big and has good stats. Again, doesn't mean anything, stats don't. But, I know, bro. I mean, you'll never catch, like, out of all the quarterback prospects, and partially this is because he's a rookie and it's a bit of an unknown, without a doubt. Like, we just put up a poll question with the 4 quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield, Derek Carr, Hendon Hooker, and Andy Dalton. Like, I have no doubt in my mind that Hendon Hooker is going to win that poll.
But that doesn't mean anything. One, because the people who he's competing against, but 2, because people want new blood. People want fresh faces. People, and by people I mean fans, they don't want a retread of Andy Dalton or a retread of Baker Mayfield or Derek Carr for $40 million. They want, Hendon Hooker or any rookie quarterback represents hope, represents a new future, represents all that kind of stuff. So of course the polls are going to say that, but I don't think any organization in sports would be successful if they let the fans run what they were doing.
He is by far the most exciting prospect of that bunch, even if it doesn't happen.
No.
Well, he's the only prospect of that bunch. If the rest of the bunch is Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, and Andy Dalton, there are no prospects. He's the only prospect.
And you're in a really good position to be able to draft him where your draft choices are. That's kind of in the range that he's being talked about going. And I love the fact that he went to the Senior Bowl. He couldn't play in it, obviously, coming off that ACL, but he met with teams. Teams were blown away so much with what he did in those meetings that he started to go up on draft boards. Like, think about how impressive you've got to be in those meetings to be able to convince them enough that, hey, I'm a guy that you should take a look at. You should do a deep.
I think he'll go. I think his ceiling is like early second round. He's not a first round player. No one's going to draft a 27-year-old off a knee injury in the first round. So the Saints would have to maneuver in that second round, I think, if they want to like guarantee Hooker. That's where he'll probably go. But he may slide. Word on the street is he's going to be ready for training camp.
Deep dive into
so that's something to think about with his injury.
Because of what I know, just sitting here talking ball on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. That's something we talked about a lot when we were down there, like you said, in Mobile. So yeah, I'm down for Hendon Hooker.
Something else too. A lot of coaches, a lot of GMs say that what prospects do whiteboard wise, like what Jacob's talking about, breaking down routes, breaking down plays, breaking down tape, stuff like that, talking about the game, their philosophy on the game, how they see the game. That is just as important as the physical stuff they can do at the combine. Nobody cares about what they can do physically at the combine. I don't care what a player is running in a 40-yard dash. I don't care about their vertical. I don't care about their cone drill. I don't care about any of that stuff. I don't care about pro days. I think pro days for quarterbacks are probably the dumbest thing that is in sports. I mean, you have, like, really think about it, right? You have multiple seasons most of the time of tape on these players playing in actual games. Why would it matter what they do in one afternoon with no defense, with nothing happening, in shorts and a t-shirt? Why would the pro day have any meaning at all over their body of work when they were actually playing against people? Like, maybe just to see their mechanics, maybe, but the pro days, I think it's very overrated how the combine is graded.
Dude, hell yeah. I'm down to
You
draft
get Hendon
Anthony
Hooker
Richardson and Hendon Hooker.
You get, good God, you get Hendon Hooker on a rookie contract, and if you get him in that first round at 29, you have that 5th-year option. Even if you want to have a bridge quarterback for a year, which doesn't sound like you need because he's going to be healthy for training camp, but if you have concerns, like you have a veteran quarterback under contract for this next.
I think I agree. I mean, me and Jacob have been 100% this whole time with the quarterback talk in the offseason, even with the car stuff. But I 100% agree. Bring in Hooker. Let him chill. Let him rehab. Let him deal with his leg. Let him do all that stuff behind Dalton. You're not spending any extra money. Take that money that you would have spent on Derek Carr or whoever and shore up your offensive line, shore up your defensive line, shore up your secondary, all that stuff. Let Dalton play for a while. And maybe you don't even need to play Hooker for that first season. You know, maybe Dalton can guide you to a division title in a weak NFC South. And then after that, you know, he knows it's Hooker's team. Hooker comes in, starts. He's got plenty of time to rebuild his leg, plenty of time to understand the NFL, plenty of time to understand the system. And then the team is better because you've invested in other positions. Then bam, it's Hooker's team and the Saints are ready to roll. Like, to me, that sounds like a perfect plan. That sounds like a foolproof plan. That sounds like something that financially makes sense. It sounds like something that's very doable. That's another important thing to remember, ladies and gentlemen, with these off-season things. You gotta live in this realm of reality. I've heard a lot of people in my comments or on Twitter or whatever say, like, trade for Aaron Rodgers, or it's like sign Lamar Jackson, draft Anthony Richardson, and play them both. And it's like, what are we even talking about? What are we talking about? We're talking about signing Lamar for $250 million guaranteed, trading to get him, then trading up to get Richardson, then running some crazy dual quarterback scheme. Like, it's better when you're in these off-season situations to think about what is the most feasible options. And then out of those options, what makes the most sense? I like how exactly the plan that we just laid out. Get Dalton back, draft Hooker in the second round somewhere in there, let Hooker sit for as long as he needs to. Could be a season, could be half a season, who knows. Then turn it over to Hooker and see where we are for a few years, all while he's under a rookie contract.
I think you could still, at that point, I mean, again, I think the James thing is going to happen because Allen, but you keep James, you could sign Baker. There's a few different things that I'd be open to doing there for sure. So we are in agreement on this, Jake. We disagree on Anthony Richardson, but we agree on Hendon Hooker. Okay, we are big fans of Hooker. Wow, just amazing.
Yeah, I think he's very affordable. I think he's a solid player. I think from what we saw, and something else I like about Hendon Hooker, or just his situation, is that you're always worried when a player is at the helm of like a high flying offense, and you're always worried, like, did the system make him? Did the coach make him? Josh Heupel, coach of Tennessee, I'm a big fan of. But when Hooker went down, Tennessee went down. If Tennessee would have been just as good without him, that would be cause for concern. Then you can sit here and say, like, well, damn, I mean, his backup was just as good as he was. But that wasn't the case. Hendon Hooker was their season. With him on the field, they may have been in the playoffs. I don't know. But without him, they were a shell of their former self, which leads me to believe that, Hendon Hooker brought a lot to that system. But let me know in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think. Should the Saints look at drafting Hendon Hooker over Anthony Richardson? Which one of those two players would you want? Would you want to trade up? Would you want to give something? Give more draft capital? Give players? Do whatever we had to do to move up from 29 to 10 or 11 or 8 or wherever we had to draft Richardson? Or would you rather sit back, kind of let things happen, take that first round pick, and then get Hendon Hooker in the second round, somewhere in there? So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you on the next video.